Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
All right, welcome to episode 8. Ooh, 8.
It's a great number.
Yeah, it's a great number. Of Outside the Zeitgeist. Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Charles.
I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
And I am a resident skeptic, Greg. Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike the video so you can express that the feeling is mutual.
And before we get into nightmare fuel, I actually have something that I enjoy. Ooh.
What is this? Nightmare fuel?
This is, well,
Cheerful fuel?
I mean,
Hopeful fuel? What do we call this?
I don't know.
Well, let's move on.
But, so anyway, this has to do with one of the few things that actually still gets me excited. Ugh. And that is science. So anyways.
Every science should always make you excited.
Oh, it's what does it for me. But anyways, so a few days ago in the Fermi lab, there was an unusual discovery. So basically, without getting into all the whole details, because I know a lot of you people aren't science heavy, but they do all these different experiments where they smash things together. They smash subatomic particles together. They smash alpha particles together, which are like helium atoms without the electrons, and they see what happens. And they're doing it in all the different ways, just to explore the different fundamental forces of the universe. And they found something that they couldn't explain.
That's amazing. That means...
Well, the initial idea is that it could be a new type of muon. And a muon, or some people say muon, because it's based on the Greek letter mu, or mu, whatever you say. A muon is a subatomic particle that is responsible for the weak force. I don't know if you know, the four fundamental forces: strong force, weak force, electromagnetism, and gravity. And the weak force is what sort of governs radioactive decay in particles. So like when you hear about radioactivity and whatnot, there's particles like muons that are participating in that. And this experiment shows that there might be a new type of one, which I find very exciting because I love science.
Speaking of science, I was listening to one of my favorite YouTubers, PBS something. He's always bringing up science topics. And he was talking about the fact that scientists are in the midst of considering whether or not black holes are actually the dark matter that we can't find in the universe.
It's possible. I mean,
it's possible. His conclusion, it seemed like, was that it wasn't probable, but it was an explanation that scientists are exploring to try and disprove if that would be true.
Now, one idea I've toyed with is that the idea of dark matter is potentially uncaptured photons. So what photons are is, the photon is light, and they have all different energy levels. That's where you get your gamma radiation and so forth. But a photon is basically what happens when a positron and electron get together, because they're antiparticles of each other. They get together and they annihilate each other, and then you have a photon. But photons are only captured when, like, you look at the light source or it bounces off of something. There's different ways that photons interact with matter. But they still have, they have no rest mass, but they are still things that exist in space. And one idea I've toyed around with is the idea that photons may be the quote-unquote dark matter of the universe. But,
interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much water it has. It's not something I've really looked at.
I'd have to look further into that.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested in science topics. Years ago, I watched a clip, and they were talking about the existence of not parallel dimensions, but subdimensions.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. So the whole idea is after the Big Bang, there are basically different pockets in space that form that have all different universes.
Well, they're not even universes. They're talking about like small pocket dimensions where matter would behave differently that might exist around us. And the fact, it was also in reference to micro black holes and the fact that micro black holes are just, they exist for a very short period of time and then they disappear.
Yeah, that's...
But it was very interesting science. I want to find it so I can rewatch it, because I always feel like I watch something once or twice and I just don't get as much out of it as if I were to watch it again.
Well, just to stay on the topic, because I'm enjoying geeking out about this.
Sure.
But what's it called? If we have an infinite universe, then it is possible that there are pockets of the universe that are designed, or not designed, but put together in a different way. For example, we are made up of what we call protons and electrons, the proton-electron atom. But it is possible for there to be a pocket of our universe that is antiproton-positron atom. And the amazing thing about science is that there is actually a way that if these two pockets of the universe could communicate with each other, they could find out by producing a subatomic particle called a kaon. And by the way the kaon degrades, it produces, I remember now, it produces more negatives than positives. And then we can just say, okay, we got two negatives and one positive, and then we can find out if we're the same matter or not.
Speaking of stuff like that, makes me think of the portion of space that is just completely dead, with the exception of maybe like a star.
Oh, I thought you were talking about my soul.
No. That's another portion of space. But it's dead in a different way. But you've heard about this? The scientists have charted the skies, and they continue to chart even more and more. But there's a particular portion of the universe where they expect to see a certain number of...
Oh, yeah, so the dead spot, there's like a...
Right,
basically
there's this giant area of space that is almost completely dead of any sources of light. They can't explain why that area, because it doesn't match how the rest of the universe has been populated by galaxies and stars.
Right, and beyond that, though, they're able to see things because the only way, because it's so far away, the only way they can see stuff is because of the redshifting. And and that one explanation could be because that whole dead area is a separation between a proton-electron universe and a positron.
There's a lot of explanations. It could be signs of
signs of the Big Bang, even.
It could also be signs of intelligent life that existed and completely destroyed themselves in a portion of space. That's my hopeful, long
Yeah, because
shot.
then the human race can repeat it.
I mean, it goes back to that. Have you heard of the Great Filter?
Possibly.
So I forget the specific theorem or theory or that it belongs to. Hypothesis, whatever it is. It's not a theory. It's a hypothesis. It's there's a particular barrier that is referred to in some cases as the Great Filter, which says that a species will get to a point, and I think it also refers to societies in general, but eventually a species will get to the point, and then either it can overcome the big obstacle that's preventing it from moving into its next stage of evolution or expansion or anything.
Yeah, it's an evolutionary theory.
Right. And, we might be on the cusp of a great filter right now, what with all the craziness happening outside.
I think that right now is the beginning of humanity's decline, which is a great opportunity to get into the nightmare fuel.
Yes, let's begin.
And so what do you got for nightmare fuel, Greg?
So the very first thing I want to talk about is very light, with the exception of the fact that a New Jersey man who was fully vaccinated, got both his shots and everything, is now back in the hospital suffering from, ding, 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 COVID-19.
84.
Yes. I question why people are pushing to get the vaccine when clearly, very clearly, and this is not the only case, because there's another case coming out of Alaska.
Wait. Certain vaccines are not getting pushed to take anymore.
Oh, you're right. Specifically, one, we never got AstraZeneca, and now Johnson & Johnson. And you know what's funny about this is that they both are not being pushed to be taken anymore for the exact same reason, just different causations of it or something like that. Apparently blood clotting is a thing.
You know what's even funnier is that me and a couple mutual friends of ours were talking about this because, the one got the shot, and this is while we were waiting for you, and the one mutual friend who didn't get the shot said the Johnson & Johnson one is pretty much the best. And then he just...
Right.
And then when I scoffed at him, he was like, oh, yeah, sure, Charles.
But the funny thing about it, and this is what people keep bringing up, is the fact that it's 6 cases out of 6.9 million that got blood clots, and not normal blood clots, but a blood clot that's super rare. And they're the cases that are being used to stop people from getting the vaccine. And some of the people I listen to, they just bring it up. This is a lower rate of blood clot than even a contraceptive in women. And it's just funny to me. It's so interesting. What's really going on? I don't know.
The interesting thought that might be going on there is that it could be one company trying to use the FDA to push another company out, or the CDC.
Could be. I mean, I've
because
seen that happen.
Most of our government organizations are owned by different companies. That's the truth. The CDC is owned by companies. The FDA is owned by. It's all who can grease the wheels the most.
That's the one thing you learn in life is money, although it is a terrible, powerful force of nature, one might say, it is also what makes the world go round.
Really? I thought that was, the 4 fundamental forces of the universe.
No, we don't believe in real science here. We believe in pseudoscience, money. Which,
Speaking
by the
which,
way,
did you hear about the Twitter spat between Steakums and Neil deGrasse Tyson?
No. Well, yes, I heard about it. I didn't look into it because I don't give a shit about that.
It's just some stupid shit. So Steakums apparently didn't like what Neil deGrasse Tyson said, that because Neil deGrasse Tyson said that science is just there. It doesn't care how basically the whole, doesn't care how you feel and so forth.
Facts don't care about your feelings?
Yeah, something along that lines in terms of science. And Steakums was saying that he was pushing people to be critical of, what's it called? And actually most people are, siding with Steakums on this, apparently, from what I've heard.
He's pushing people to be critical of what?
I don't know. I didn't pay too much attention. But the thing is like, I did look quickly at what they both said. And the thing is, they're both right from a different point of view. And the thing that Steakums didn't really acknowledge is, their media manager or whatever, is that what Neil deGrasse Tyson said is true. The only caveat that most people don't realize is that we don't know all of it. We haven't discovered all of it. But whatever science is there.
So, something about science, which is great, is the fact that we never settle almost anything in science. People think science is settled for a number of topics on things that we learn in school and I would say take for granted just thinking about. But science is not ever settled. There is there has
We're always
to be
discovering something new.
Correct.
And that was the point that Steakums brought up, which was true. But, they didn't I don't think they understood the context, because being a person, scientist myself, you think the same way. Everything just is. The question is, have you discovered it all yet?
I say no. I tell
people,
people,
you never do.
I tell people frequently all the time. You might think I know everything. I know a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what is known knowledge, and even less of what is unknown knowledge.
Don't look at me. I can't tell the difference between my ass and a hole in the ground.
I just don't like when people they look at someone and they stop questioning anything that the person says, even if a person says something that you know that what they're saying is not necessarily true, but it is something that makes sense, right?
Hold on to that thought, because I'm going to get more into that later on.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Is YouTube? They're deleting likes. They're also purging people, and one of the people that just got purged was James Corbett, who was
wonderful.
Yeah, he's he's one of those guys that everybody says, no, you're wrong, ha ha ha, and then last year everybody turned around and says, holy shit, you're right. But anyways, so even a channel, I don't know if you're familiar with the channel MXR Plays.
Nope.
They're just cute young Asian couple, and they just do reactions to like memes and stuff on Reddit and whatnot. That's the whole point of that particular channel. So these two people would be, I consider, the most neutral on the topic. But they they made a video showing in real time likes getting removed from their videos.
Sure.
They kept refreshing the page and the likes went down. But on their statistics, they showed the same number of likes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So.
Did they try it with a VPN in a different area?
I don't know.
Because it's funny about that because if you were to search YouTube using a VPN and set your country as, say, the UK or something like that, and you search for any topic, particularly topics that are very politically charged in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
In the US, you're not going to see the same thing you see in the UK.
Oh, no. It's totally different.
It's completely different. It's absolutely insanity.
Now, here's the thing about the whole removing like things, because it's been a popular point of contention for the past couple of years. But the thing is, for me, I've noticed it even before, like well before people started talking about it, where I would have a video come up in my recommendations, and I've seen it before. I know that I've seen it before, and I go to the video and there's not a like there, and I was like, I know I've seen it. I know I put a like on it. And this is before, I was talking like 2013 and so forth.
I noticed this recently with a couple music videos I watched.
Well, no, but see, that's the thing. I'm not talking recently. I'm talking years before.
Well, I'm talking about I liked the video years and years and years ago, particularly like an epic rap battle. Okay?
Yeah.
I've watched all the videos. I've put a like on most of them, if not all of them. And they do great stuff. And I recently rewatched one. It didn't show that I had watched it. It removed my playback time of how far I'd gotten into the video before I exited out of it. And it also removed the like that I had put on it. But this is a further just extension of what YouTube has already been doing.
Right. And
the removal of people from subscriptions.
Well, the thing is that even before all that started happening, when I noticed this stuff happening, I always figured it was a way to get the same videos watched more so that they can get more ad revenue.
To remove dislikes?
No, to remove likes and the fact that you've watched a video. That's what I was saying. Before everybody was even talking about this, like well before that.
It may be. I mean, I can't honestly see that being a huge...
Well, because YouTube is not a profitable company.
Well, no, we talked about this.
Yeah.
And YouTube is currently losing money, still losing money. And I still don't see an exit strategy for them. I don't even believe there is an exit strategy. I think they're just subsidized for the purpose.
They've had a horrible business model anyways.
Sure. They're just there to make certain that no one else can get into the space.
Give me a few $1 million, I guarantee you I could build an extremely better business model.
Sure.
Servers and all.
Another YouTube topic. I was recently watching the latest John Oliver propaganda piece. They keep telling me it's supposed to be funny, but I refuse to see the jokes as funny because they're not funny.
Well, humor is subjective
bad
anyways.
jokes, they're bad jokes, and they fall flat. Particularly, he made a joke about Cuomo. So it is now normal and to make jokes about Cuomo killing people in nursing homes. And yet, what is the Attorney General of New York pursuing?
I don't know. Is it
sexual harassment cases?
I'm still waiting for when it's normal to point out the fact that a lot of politicians have their family members in the media.
They do. They have their family members and everything.
Because who was Cuomo interviewed by? His brother?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. That's not an Orwellian novel right there or anything.
Absolutely not.
But,
such great stuff.
Speaking of great stuff, Asian fonts are just racist. Did you know that, Greg?
I knew Dr. Seuss was racist, but I guess Asian fonts are the next biggest thing. We got to get rid of those too.
So apparently, according to the article, the root of like the Asian fonts you see on like Asian restaurants and whatnot, the origin of it was from this guy who was a racist and wanted to get the Chinese out of America, back in like the 1800s or whatever the fuck.
Is that true?
I don't know if it's true.
I mean, that doesn't sound true to me.
Even if it's true or not, this is something that goes back to what I was saying in an earlier episode, where, sure, there's times when intent is important, but if you're not looking for what you can get out of something, then if you're looking over intent over what you can get out of something, you're behind everybody else, right? So, like, this font many people use, and it identifies, Asian writing because it's similar to Hanza and it's similar to kanji, right? So I mean, it's like the same thing with like the Volkswagen. Who made the Volkswagen?
The Germans.
Right. Who wound up taking the Volkswagen and using it for something else other than war?
Was it the Nazis?
No, the hippies.
Oh, the hippies.
Right? They took the Volkswagens, and that's what was all the peace vehicles and everything.
Oh, that's right. The stupid little...
Herbie the Love Bug and all that stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff.
You know,
But
and that even goes to something like, our show here.
I don't think people really can grasp where stuff. Maybe not grasp, but you can't get a full idea of where anything comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were
because
to ask
you weren't there.
Sure, if you were to ask the average person who makes a Honda, they'd probably assume it was American in some cases, and other people might be smart enough to realize, oh, it's Japanese. But it's the same thing with with states and other useless knowledge points that they teach in school. Because if you ask the average American some useless factoid about history in the United States, they're not going to know. But if you ask some person who's trying to become a U.S. citizen, they're going to state it verbatim. It's fresh in their mind. They have to learn it to become a citizen.
But it's the same thing of, like I say, if it's more fruitful to look at what you can get out of something versus the intent and what. So take our show for example,
Sure.
right? The whole point of why you and I dress the way we do is so that
Ruining the surprise.
Yeah, fuck them anyways. Fuck you people. But the whole point is that, like, you dress up like a wealthier person, I dress up like a bum, is to show that people can be wrong. Doesn't matter where you come from, and at the same time, it's manipulating people and subverting their expectations, where people would probably more be likely to pay attention and take you for truth just because of the way you're dressed.
God, I hope not.
And look at me because I'm dressed the way I do, and I'm make sure to be a complete asshole to everybody. They would be more inclined to just say, oh well, fuck Charles, he's just an asshole, and not pay attention to anything I say.
An ass is right every once a day.
I've never heard that one before.
It's mostly when you're on the toilet.
But speaking of stuff in media, do you hear they're making a new Indiana Jones movie?
No, but I'm assuming that Harrison Ford will not be allowed to use his whip again for some unknown
BDSM reasons. No,
even though he's trained.
So apparently, one of the people that is having a huge part in making this movie is one of the people that had a huge part in the latest James Bond.
Yeah, I saw there was a latest James Bond, and I almost watched it. Then I thought...
The James Bond that is now a woman James Bond.
Oh, that one?
That one.
Oh, never mind. I no longer care about this new Indiana Jones. Even less so than I cared about the One We Shall Not Speak Of with blue Chris... Oh, no, I can't say anything more.
That movie had potential.
It did, and then it didn't.
I mean, there was a couple parts of it that were like, okay, this is great, and then it got to a part where it's like, okay, this is fucking stupid.
What I think it could have been much better if they had, instead of trying to
without the ending.
Well, not only the ending, but I think the whole idea of it would have been better if it was just a better sort of like myth or something, or
yeah.
It could have gone in so many directions. It could have gone.
But that would have broken the canon of Indiana Jones, because it started off with the Ark being an actual thing.
Sure. Well, no. I mean, so was the Holy Grail and all that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So for it to have turned out to be a myth would have broken the.
No. I mean, they could have made another myth into a real.
Oh, okay.
Because I firmly believe that Indiana Jones should be rooted in.
They find the resting place of Quetzalcoatl.
In actual mythology of artifacts that have existed in history, or supposedly existed in history, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I think it was best when, Temple of Doom. Great stuff.
Short Round was one of the greatest sidekicks.
Yes. Makes me want to play Ruins of Arnak again.
Best arcade game, by the way, was Temple of Doom. One of the best.
I remember playing the arcade game on my Super Nintendo. And
it just wasn't as good.
No.
That's how it works.
The Super Nintendo was, you could get pretty far in it, but I never beat the game. It was as a side scroller, Aladdin was better.
Oh, Aladdin was. The Disney games were great back then.
Great side scroller games.
Yeah.
Flying on the carpet, trying to escape out of the out of the cave.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Yeah, but now it's all like bullshit and and all this yelling and everything. And speaking of yelling, I have a new name for society's pain. It's all like people say the woke and the SJW and everything.
Is this like a new Karen?
Sort of. But, just because I like to name things myself, just to be a dick and so forth. So my new name for all the people that yell and scream that this is racist or this is blah cultural appropriation, blah, 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 I'm going to call them a Debbie.
A Debbie.
You remember Addams Family Values?
Yes.
I don't enjoy hurting anybody. I don't like guns or bombs or electric chairs. But sometimes people just won't listen. And so I have to use persuasion.
That is the single greatest line right there. Because every good intention is, hell is paved with good intentions.
Well,
so,
you know why that is? Because there's no such thing as good intentions.
No,
and we'll get into that on our topic of today. So we'll stow that one for now, and let's go on to your new next
topic. Very interesting. I listened to a number of people last week, and they were talking about the fact that the government is considering paying migrants to not come to the United States.
How about we just save the money and not bomb their countries or pay for coups in the first place?
When I heard that there was someone that was considering this. Now, in lieu of the fact that this was a news story on Friday, before this story got released, the Border Patrol, what's the specific name? Give me a moment. The White House border coordinator who recommended this policy, ridiculous, resigned. And so the resignation came in before the article about the paying migrants to not come to the United States. I've never heard of such an absurd idea. Here's money to not come to America. Oh, thanks for the $500. Now I'm going to use that $500 and I'm going to buy myself a boat that I can row to America.
Or I'll buy myself a shovel and dig under the tunnel that Biden still built, or dig under the wall.
Better yet, I'll just get myself a really tall ladder, and instead of throwing people over the wall, I'll have rope as well. Because $500, I can get rope and ladder with $500.
Oh man!
$500 is like 5,000 pesos or something like that.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we all have stupid ideas. I'm full of them all the fucking time. But I mean, I don't see. Take a step back, resigning just for having this idea. I mean, come on, man. Everybody has.
I don't even know if that's why she resigned. All I know is she resigned, and then the story came out by the same person who proposed this policy. And it's like, what are we doing? What's going on with the media? Other interesting news that's useless policies and executive orders. All of the gun stuff that Biden signed in. Because a number of people that have spoken about how bad it is, and experts have agreed that these executive orders will not do anything at all to stop gun violence.
Well, I mean, shortly after Biden was elected, so you had a bunch of people that bought gun assembly kits where you would buy just parts of a gun.
Yep.
And you'd have to assemble the rest of the stuff. How it would tell you how.
Yep.
And the ATF raided all these people's homes because they went to the company and got all the information. And all those cases now it's got decided that was all unconstitutional.
Well, that is in reference to ghost guns and such, which is not really much of a threat to people in general. A ghost gun, as far as I've been made to understand, is it is basically any gun that does not have a serial number. So it could be an illegal gun that did have a serial number of sorts on it, but it got filed off because that's what criminals do. It could also be this really, really expensive 3D printed gun, which if you look into the cost to 3D print a gun, it is prohibitively expensive. It is just so expensive because you have to have a 3D printer that can print in metal. Okay,
or
you have to buy the resources that it can print in metal,
or some high
or high-end
resistant
resin
polymer.
3D printer. So both of those are just they're not. Yeah. They're going to be like commercial grade type stuff.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be extremely, extremely expensive for the average individual.
There is heat resistant polymers that you can use in the regular 3D printer, but
more importantly, a lot of these guns don't. They don't get more than a few.
Yeah, they wouldn't hold up more than a few rounds.
Few rounds in it, and then also you can't even fire them until you've bought these kits that you just talked about, because you can't print all the parts that are necessary to make it work.
Yeah,
it's absolutely absurd.
Speaking of Biden and overextending his authority,
sure. What's the new one?
Biden started making moves to. Emperor Palpatine has decided to dissolve the Senate.
Oh no!
Oh no! Actually, so Emperor Biden has, because we live in the Empire of American States.
That's what people keep telling me.
And over there at the Citadel, has decided. Oh wait, that's I don't think the White House is part of the Citadel. Anyways, I call it the Citadel now, but whatever.
Well, they have fences. They have the militaries there.
Yeah, it's the Citadel. So Emperor Biden has put out this executive order to look into the Supreme Court and look into what changes could be made to the Supreme Court, completely disregarding the Constitution and so forth.
I heard about this useless, illegal thing.
Yeah,
it's purely drama.
And well, in response, the elephant side of the Donkey Fin Party has proposed a bill to limit the number of Supreme Court justices to 9. So
I mean, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
you keep if you keep expanding, how many more? I mean, you go to 11, you go to 13. Then it just becomes a way of we don't have enough people on my side so let me get a couple more.
But there are some legitimate issues with the Supreme Court, and like we look at the case of Texas versus every other fucking state in the country.
Well, it wasn't
Texas versus.
There was Texas. And,
I'm sorry, every state in the country versus Pennsylvania or whatever the fuck it was.
So that was a very interesting case, and I really thought that something might happen. But then I realized the truth of the matter, which is we live in a very, very biased political climate right now.
It's not only that. So there are many problems with the court, like the whole issue of standing, where you can't petition the court to look at a law unless you've been harmed by it, which there are still many laws on the books of various municipalities and states and so forth that, like one guy in, I think it was Michigan, decided to go to court because there's an anti-polygamy law, or something like that. But the court ruled, because we're not enforcing it, we're not going to hear the case. Nobody's enforced it, but the law is still on the books, so that's a problem.
Why have a law if you're not going to enforce it?
Right, so there's all these different problems with our legal system, and there are legitimate questions to be had. Do I trust Biden to do it?
No. I don't trust Biden or Harris to do anything.
And also the case, also not hearing the Texas and...
See, in my mind, there's clearly standing. Because if you have 50 states, and every state's electoral votes are to determine who is the president of the United States, then clearly, if some of the electoral votes are being illegally cast towards another president because they were just voted in illegal manners, which I can't say they were or they weren't, because that may or may not be the case. But
the fact is that nobody wanted the Supreme Court didn't want to hear any case that would have actually looked into things, and there were cases that were thrown out for lack of evidence, or were cases that were won for sufficient evidence.
Sure, but my point being is that if Texas is alleging that something happened and they believe that there was just some sort of tomfoolery going on in the election, okay, then their votes are completely invalidated by the fact that other votes were allowed in, because those votes, in their opinion, were cast illegally or something to that effect. Put it this way: if you have 100 people voting, and 50 of the people buy out 25 of the other people to vote for them. Now you have 75 to 25. So you just remove 25 votes that could have been to make it a 50-50 standstill. Instead, it became 75-25. So you've wiped out all of the votes of the other person because you bought a majority.
Right. I mean, the one thing I don't get is that some people were saying that like the courts didn't want to hear, they didn't want to hear the cases because they didn't want to have to overturn elections, as if and there was the whole idea as if somehow that would have nullified the votes of the other group of people if the election was overturned. I'm just like, well,
but the whole thing is that they're alleging that their votes were nullified to begin with. The whole conversation starter is that the votes were nullified by the effect of there being invalid votes to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes no sense. It's a circular logic.
Yeah. All right, what do you got next?
In other news, apparently rioting in Minnesota is not a real thing. Because if you look up rioting on Google, and I don't know if this is still true, but yesterday night, when I was watching Timcast IRL, they did a live search of Google versus DuckDuckGo. And I did the same thing at the same time, and it came up with very similar results. And I have a feeling that my results were catered towards my particular searches, because every browser I've ever used starts to learn how I search the internet.
Yeah,
but
cookies.
Google showed me the exact same results that Tim got when he was looking it up on his live show, and they showed only riots, according to them, from January 6th, which is apparently the only riot that's occurred at all in the last year.
But
and then on DuckDuckGo,
okay, go ahead.
It showed the Minnesota stuff.
So, about one thing about those riots in Minnesota, I'll talk later in our main topic about what caused them. But there was actually a spokesman from all the rioters that decided to give some encouraging words.
All the buildings y'all are crying about for burning down, them buildings got life insurance, everything gonna be back.
The buildings got life insurance. I just want to state that again. Buildings are now physically people. They have life insurance. They don't have building insurance or house insurance or anything else. They have life insurance. That is a ridiculous statement.
Where I got that from, so they were live streaming, and these people were lined up across the street from a gas station, and you'll never guess the name of this gas station.
Please tell me.
It's called the Pump and Munch.
Oh, that's great! Here's another thing I just don't understand. If in the back of your mind, you believe that every single business must have insurance for when something happens. That's not true. Not every business has insurance for when there's a rainy day. I know most businesses should have insurance for when there's a rainy day, such as rioters burning down freaking buildings.
Did you see the press conference where the reporters were telling the police officers, "Oh, don't say it's a riot."
Don't say it. Clearly, and I've already expressed this opinion before, but clearly the mainstream media is pushing a narrative that there cannot be riots unless you are on the right side or the conservative side or whatever they want you to believe. Clearly, there is no such thing as a riot unless you are of that persuasion.
Speaking of riots, people at a church in Canada all of a sudden heard...
Yes.
What was it, 200 riot police?
200 riot police. Riot police, by the way. 200 riot police. They were walking, lined up in... It was almost like watching a military brigade come up and assault a place. There was a fence there. The fence was put up by who? By, I believe, people that were not the church. The policemen put up the fence, and then they broke it down.
Yeah. Yeah, and they should have used a secret chant.
Out, Nazi.
But where you saw a video from one of the cops though, right?
I did. The cop that was filming the video, he must have been having an out-of-body experience because he was recording it, which I found to be very interesting. The fact that he released the footage and all that, because even he was astounded by the amount of police to assault a church. I do mean assault church because they were locked and loaded. They had their weapons at their sides. They were decked out in their body armor. They had their helmets. They're nice, shiny plastic whatever helmets.
If it were possible for me to have any faith in humanity, it would be from stuff like that, but no.
Now, this leads me to my next topic, which is apparently that thing that we've been hearing talked about in the what I would call conspiracy theory people.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the vaccine is going to have microchips that are going to go into your body is now a real thing because DARPA, along with the Pentagon, have developed a microchip that is being inserted into the military to determine if they have COVID-19.
Oh, they want to bring it to the populace also.
They do.
And you know what the people said when they heard about it?
The best part about it is that in the beginning of it, they're talking about as if this microchip cannot be used to track people. And then they go on later in the video and they talk about the fact that it can track you because it has to maintain connection with whatever is determining if you have COVID-19 or not. And somehow it can remove it too or some bullshit.
Our fucking race is so pathetic. So what it's supposedly what it is it tests your blood. And then once it says check your blood, then you got to go test your blood again to see if you have COVID.
Another wonderful YouTuber brought up the fact that if this is what they're telling us about, and let's be clear, they are definitely telling the public we have this technology. What kind of technology are they not telling us about?
Greg, I wanted you to know that I've actually I can secretly time travel.
Amazing.
And I have gone to the future. I've gone 8 years into the future, and I brought a news article back from the future. I don't have the clips to show you, but I'll just ramble it off the top of my head.
Okay.
It was saying that people that once again the courts have disproven that the different illnesses that people were suffering were from the different COVID vaccine shots.
They've disproven it.
They've disproven it. It was. I think they mentioned it was like the 5th or 6th time that they've disproven it in court.
Wow.
Then they went on to talk about the how the quarantine camps.
Mm-hmm.
They have this great new weight loss program because the people that go in there, they come out having lost a whole shitload of weight afterwards.
Did you meet up with John Titus, by the way?
I don't know, but they made sure to remind everybody at the end of the news report that they should be taking their 3 daily COVID shots.
3?
Yeah, 3
how
daily.
How do people afford that?
I don't know, but that's what they were saying.
If I
and this is from the future now.
Now, in this future, when I critique the judges who came to this decision, are they having highway police come to my home?
Oh my God! Yeah, fucking Alexandria Griftazio. Now, allegedly, she's told her followers to check other people's feeds and report them and so forth. That sounds like, oh yeah, make sure you commit fraud on my behalf,
It's great stuff.
And so this guy in California gets visited for apparently threatening AOC because he critiqued her video where she makes this huge fucking word salad,
It was I watched the video. I gotta tell you.
The who, the when.
I gotta tell you, every video I've ever seen by her sounds exactly the same, except sometimes she actually brings up the topic of which she is talking about in that video that she's making.
So what this guy wound up saying, or what he said he thought might have happened, is that he thought somebody, in response to his video,
mm-hmm.
made a threat to Griftazio, and what's it called?
So,
but he still got visited by police, and they were harassing him at his property. Well, they were being really intimidating on his property. Just like, hey, you come over here. Are you so and so? This is your Twitter handle, and It's like queer something or other is his Twitter handle.
Well, he's a leftist. That's what I heard.
Yeah, the name of his Twitter feed is Human Rights Watch Watcher, but the @ is like queer something or other.
By the way, this is the same thing that happened in the UK to a number of people. That if you tweet the wrong thing, the police will come to your home and arrest you.
I mean, even in DMs, if you say something they don't like in private messages, they come into your home and arrest you.
This is the downfall of humanity. If we allow
this is exactly what I expect from society. I've been waiting for this for 40 fucking years.
Try and get all the power they can for all the reasons they shouldn't.
Yeah, so I guess according to Griftazio, she's on the YouTube train where people are responsible for replies and whatnot.
Before I forget, online with Twitter and all these other stuff, gaming. Gaming is now about to be censored by Intel because they are creating an AI that will allow gamers to slide a bar as to how much hate speech they want to hear when they're gaming. I still have no definition of hate speech.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is one of those things where I do have a mixed response to, because there's always been the censorship in chats and whatnot, the starring out of words, or that's been a thing in different internet circles for a while, and I do have to wonder if the reaction to it is just based on the times that we're in, rather than the acknowledgement of something that has been around.
Well, I love what they call it. They call it Bleep. That's the name of their AI.
You know what? I gotta say, that's a great name.
It's a great name. Bleep is a great name. It's
something you need to use listening to this podcast a lot, apparently.
Yes.
I'm fucking saying. Yeah.
Yes. But what I don't like about it, because sure you can block. It's great for I guess a child who's playing a game, but the child shouldn't really be playing a game with people that are going to be using that kind of language to begin with. You awful parents. But what I just don't like about the fact is that we're allowing companies to decide what you can or can't hear, because this is a small stepping stone.
Yeah, well,
if it's the AI that's determining.
Right, at first, it's the user able to control it, and then how long
eventually it's going to become the AI is going to take.
That is a concern. What's going on in current year? That's a legitimate concern for a lot of people, and I understand that. I mean, I can't argue with that, but at the same time too, I look at it from the perspective of this is stuff that's been around for a while.
Most technology has a double-edged sword.
Everything is a double-edged sword. Even that's a double-edged sword.
Oh, that's great. But what I want to say is there's basically most advancements in technology, if not all advancements in technology, have this double-edged kind of risk to them. It can either be used for incredibly good things, like nuclear power, or it can be used for incredibly bad things,
like nuclear power.
So, did we get to nuclear power before or after we had bombs? No, first we had the bombs first, right? And then we got actual uses out of it. Because isn't it most technology is developed first for military standards and then is sort of pushed out?
I mean, that's the whole point of DARPA and whatnot. But I mean, that once again goes back to like why I do this show, is the whole idea of just looking at everything through all different lenses. Because I don't give a fuck about the words like good and bad and all that shit right now.
I'm still waiting on fusion cells.
Yeah, that won't happen. In order to have a fusion reactor, you need to actually put in more energy than you'd ever get out. Unless you are, like, out in space.
That means I'll never get the Fallout 4. Damn.
Yeah. But, yeah, so...
move on to the topic.
Well, one more thing. Because, so
That's
apparently...
what grandfather always said.
What are you... Oh, God, what was that name from Jackie Chan Adventures? You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
One more thing.
It was grandfather.
Yeah, but I can't remember. Jade, that was her name. I'll call you Jade for the rest of the episode.
No, please don't. that was the niece.
Yeah, that was the niece, and the grandfather was the grandfather, and
yes.
Jackie Chan was the uncle, and then
it's great stuff.
And there's Toru, who turned out to be who switched sides like Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds. But anyways,
moving on.
So there was this video that came out of Chile. where this woman apparently was not allowed to shop for food because she didn't have proof saying that she got the Doom shot. And
that's not precisely what I heard.
Well, I mean, it's not verified. There's things still going on around it.
What I heard is that everybody in Chile is allowed to buy from their supermarket between certain hours once a week. You're not allowed to buy twice a week. And so she was trying to buy a second time in a week, which to me that makes sense. You know, I forgot to get eggs and milk the last time I went. I need those eggs and milk and bread. I forgot to buy that when I went to the store the other day, so I would just go to the store and buy it. I must be incredibly privileged because we live in the United States where I can go 7 times a week or more even if I really want to.
But that was the thing that was kind of being pushed out with the video, and like I said, I didn't know if it was true or not. But you know, that goes back to what we were saying before, that supposedly
she needed a card of sorts.
Yeah, you know, you need an identifier that you've gotten the doom spell put on you.
Well, it wasn't even that. She needed to apply for a card that would allow her to, for some reason, shop more than once in a given week at the supermarket.
Let me be the first to say that if my ability to get food depends on whether or not I get the doom spell put on me, and you know why I call it the doom spell. You get the reference?
Yes.
So unless I have a card that says I got to put the doom spell on me, I will fucking starve to death. I shit you not. I will make some stupid asshole who's like, oh, you know, everybody should get their reaction. I will make them fucking pick my dead body up out of my apartment.
You live in a goddamn suburb. There are squirrels everywhere. I'm sure you can hunt one down. Okay, I don't know about more than one, but we are entering spring, and squirrels are going to be all over the fucking place.
Or I can just pick up the roadkill deer.
Sure, they're everywhere too.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this suburbs. This is the fucking boonies. What are you talking about, suburbs?
No, this is the suburbs.
No, this is the fucking boonies. There's
nonsense.
There's farmland all around.
There's a Costco up the road. There's a Target around the corner.
Yeah,
and there's a
that
Walmart.
way. That way is all farmland.
Okay, that farmland is right up that way, and your Costco is right up that way. You are not in the boonies. Now, where I live, that's the boonies.
No, you are not. You're in the suburbs. What the fuck are you talking about? You don't know. And I thought I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground.
Excuse me. It takes me 5 minutes to get to anywhere where I can buy food.
Mm-hmm.
That's the boonies.
But that brings, like, you know, the whole idea of people trying to be like, oh, you know, there's something wrong with you. If you don't get the shot, we're not going to let you shop here. You know, you need to get the doom spell so you can prove that you blah, 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 blah. And it winds up being this whole moral argument, which brings us into today's topic about morality and beliefs and so forth. So I wanted to start off by dissecting these ideas, right?
Okay.
What is morality and what is beliefs? With trying to look at them from, you know, an emotionalist standpoint.
So, what is your definition of morality?
Well, it's not so much about what the definition is, but what the dissection of it is, right?
Well, I think we need to start at what you believe is morality itself.
So, like, when you talk about something like a belief, you know, and you try to identify what a belief is, right? We say it's, oh, I believe this and I believe that.
Beliefs are incredibly subjective.
Well, yeah, they're so incredibly subjective. And then I'll bring up this thing I say usually is that something that a person should be afraid of more than anything is what they believe, because the more you believe something, the less likely you are to question it.
I personally don't believe. Let me say that differently. I personally don't think that you should ever commit yourself to an idea or a thought more than is reasonable. You should never fully commit to some idea other than maybe in a briefest of moments. Because if
that brings up the whole thing, because right, things are only really binary if you look at them with infinite closeness.
Sure.
Situations are different from one to the next and so forth. So when you get this whole idea of, like, what is a belief, well, really you can say that
Are we talking about beliefs or are we talking about morality?
Well, I mean both, but we're talking about beliefs right now. So, really, I would say that a belief is something that is conclusory. It's a conclusion that you've come to, and that's part of the reason why people hold on to it so much is because anything that someone uh, attains, any idea that somebody attains as a conclusionary action, becomes part of their identity.
I don't know if I.
Oh, because they are the one that
I don't
came
know
up
if I
with
agree
it.
with it.
Because they're the one that came up with it.
I've
you
come
know,
up with a lot of ideas, and I don't necessarily.
well, no, but there's a difference between an idea
Mm.
and the conclusion of, okay, it must be this way because A, B, and C.
Okay, you say that, but oftentimes So as thought experiments, I will, if I believe that I am too rooted with one idea, for example, with healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and my thoughts on healthcare and how I think some idealized version of it could exist, because it's just one giant bullshit thing.
Right.
But I question my own thoughts on how healthcare should be dealt with on a more general level, because when it comes to specifics about it, I honestly have no clue how you would even do anything with regards to it, because there's so much minutia when it
Mhm.
comes to topics like that. That when you're looking at it, when you're even talking about it, most people are just looking at surface level thoughts when
Mhm.
when they're thinking about it, and they don't really think about the back end of what needs to happen to make anything work at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I think about subjects like that and my surface level thoughts on what I feel about a situation like that,
Right.
I try to question myself at least once a month, so that way I can either say, okay, my idea is still flawed, or my idea is still good, or
So
whatnot.
let me ask you in this way, going with the idea that beliefs are a conclusory result, and even if not, right? You think of the idea of one belief or conclusion that you have
Hmm.
superseding another. In your case, it's the idea that you're not always right. All right.
I'm not always right, no.
Right. I'm not always right either. That's why I believe in nothing.
I try to be right as much as possible. I try to make good logical leaps
Mhm.
of one thought to the next. You know, I wanna assume. I
Well,
want to assume.
let me interrupt you there, and
Hmm.
and maybe because I think what you want to say is that it's not so much of a leap, but a more stable connection, right? A
Stable
logic,
connection.
right? Because you said logical leaps, right? So
Well,
instead of
like
it
I
being
say,
a leap,
maybe leap is the wrong way to say it, but if I can connect idea A and idea B and come up with idea C,
in a solid way,
yes,
right? In a way that's 100% repeatable.
sure. If I can connect those two ideas, and I can say for certain that idea C is the result of combining A and B together,
Mm-hmm.
then I know that I've arrived at least a new stable idea.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I know that collectibles are a good product in the long run. I also know that some collectibles, if not most collectibles, are not necessarily a
Investment.
good investment for a long period of time. And in fact, some collectibles are really more of just one shots in which you get in,
Mm-hmm.
you get out, and then you ignore it for the rest, because there is. You ever heard of the pet rock people? Probably not. If you're not as old as I am,
Tamagotchis, Furbies.
well, that's a little more recent. Furby is still around, amazingly. But the pet rock is a product that was put
Chia
onto
Pet.
the market, and amazingly, people bought it, and then they stopped buying it, because I guess people realized it's a fucking rock,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go to the park and find a rock and draw
It's
a
all
little
about
face on it.
salesmanship.
But it's like that would have been. I think that would have been an extremely collectible product for a brief moment in time, and then you would have lost a lot of money if you had tried to invest in
Yeah,
on it.
something that burns out quickly.
So, most collectible products, in my mind, are bad investments. Some collectible products, like Pokemon cards, for some reason, I don't know why, Pokemon cards are a good investment when it comes to, and this makes sense to me, even though it doesn't make sense to me at the same time, because there's logic within the flawed logic, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you.
Specific Pokemon within Pokemon cards are a good investment because they are the ones that people will always find their way back to. They say, Pikachu's popular, you will never get rid of Pikachu. Pikachu is just too popular of a guy. So, by that logic, you can say a Pikachu card is probably more valuable than your average card. And over a number of years, thus, I've reached idea C, which is that Pikachu cards might be more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, especially if, you watch what goes on in the show. And, like, it's kind of been a thing with collectibles and toys and so forth. The things that appear in the show are what people see more, and they just tend to be more valuable.
Well, let's connect this back to morality and such.
Yeah, so when we talk about morality, what would you describe morality as being?
I would describe morality as being a set of beliefs or ideals that someone subscribes to, so that way they can live life. And I say it like that because my morality is completely different than your morality, which is completely different from the fuck that's down the stairs or next door or on the other side of the world. Everybody has a different idea of morality, but we all have, in some way, a connected, similar morality. Or at least I'd like to hope we do, because...
Well, that's really where the issue winds up coming into play, is
Sure.
where the connection points are, because everybody has their sense of morality, but the issue comes when people try to impose those ideas based on their beliefs onto somebody else.
That's where I think people are flawed, because you should never impose your beliefs and ideas on other people. You can suggest them to other people, and you can say, I think this is the way you should go about doing things, because it is done well for me, and it is done well for that person over there who also has similar ideas and thoughts to myself. But I would never say that you should force someone else to live by those set of ideas.
But that becomes a weapon in society, right? The whole morality argument that only the morality ideas of a certain people, which I've come to name the Astos, the anti-science terroristic oppressors, they use a morality argument for things like getting the doom spell and so on.
So
when none of these answers are really there's nothing easy, right? And that's the problem. And not to cut you off, Greg, but that's the problem.
Fuck you.
And fuck you too. But that winds up being a problem with the idea of morality in general, is that it can be an oversimplification for all the nuances that exist in life.
But this is something I've come to understand throughout life, and it applies to many topics. But in regards to morality, is that morality is, because it's much like other topics, it's very subjective, and everybody has their own thoughts of what morality means. And I find a lot of people tend to believe that if something is morally good, it must mean that it is good in general, which is wrong, because if something is morally good to me, that doesn't necessarily mean it is good in general. My morals are not going to align with the person who lives down the street.
The whole world, except for one person, can agree an idea, but the whole world could be wrong and that one person could be right.
Correct. And so that's another part of morality, is that tends to lean towards mob mentality, because when you have a group of people, be it a religion, be it a science, be it just a school or sorts, where they all follow the same morals, and the morals could be the laws of the school, it could be whatever, but they're following those set of morals, they're going to think somewhat in line with each other. And they might be wrong, or they might be right. But if they are believing their set, and they believe that they must be right, because everybody who has their set of morals will believe that their morals are more right than your morals. Which is another problem with morals itself, because...
And this becomes a problem with what you said before about the road to hell being paved with good intention. Because the reality is, right, we have this idea of altruism, but realistically, altruism doesn't exist. Everything comes back around to somehow serving the self. So when we talk about, the saying of road to hell being paved with good intentions, the reason why is because there are no good intentions. They're only your personal beliefs, your personal morals, and so forth, and you're inflicting that on some situation that may or may not have to do with you.
This gets to another idea of mine that I've long thought about, is the idea of good and evil, or rather order and chaos, because I believe
and wrong.
those...
Pick a set of words.
Whatever set of words, but I think order and chaos is more accurate than good and evil, because good and evil are very subjective. Order and chaos are a little more defined in my mind, because good can be used to define anything. It's good for me, but bad for you. And I might be the most evil motherfucker that you've ever met.
I want to be the most evil motherfucker.
That's
not really.
You've already gone down.
I just want to be the biggest asshole.
That you've definitely gone down. You have another 10 levels to get before you max out, but you're almost there. Those are going to be tough 10 levels to gain. So, what I like about order and chaos is that there's always going to be order and chaos. And you can see this throughout history, is that there are always going to be times of peace, and then there's going to be times of more conflict, unrest, whatever you want to call it. But conflict is a good word in this regard. So...
yeah, I noticed with that it usually winds up being the sawtooth waveform, which is like...
sure. Chaos is not bad, nor is order. Order is not bad or good. Chaos is neither bad nor good, nor is order. But let me go further into that. If I have order, that means that everything is sort of functioning in a very systematic way, some might say. For example...
boring.
Very, very boring. Order order to the 10th degree is a very boring state. But everything makes sense because everyone's following the rules within it, and thus there is order. For example, you do a crime, or a crime being you just do something that's wrong with what a law says. Doesn't have to be a morally good or bad thing. You broke a law, you get a chance to defend yourself, and if you don't defend yourself well, you go to jail. That is order. Chaos would be you broke the law, but nothing happens.
Chaos would be an absence of a law.
That when I'm saying the conflict in this case would be you broke the law, but no one gives a shit about it. No one does anything about it, which means that you're free to just keep on breaking this law again and again and again.
Yeah, so this brings to mind the whole incident with the cop, and she thought she was pulling out a taser and pulled out a gun and shot the guy who later died.
I mean, clearly we're living in a very tumultuous time period, because there is just so much disorder, chaos, and conflict everywhere. And I think back to some people that have talked about this subject at large, is that every 80 years we tend to have a very conflicting period of time.
Well, I mean, the reason why I bring up this situation is because, right, and this is, I want to get into the morality discussion of this, is here you have a person that clearly just made a mistake.
Yes.
Right? But...
theoretically.
Well, I mean, let's take it, let's observe, let's analyze it from the perspective...
she did make a mistake.
Let's analyze it from the perspective that she made a legitimate mistake, right? Okay. That happens, right? Just like the other cop that went to the wrong apartment and shot a guy and so forth. Let's assume that that's just a legitimate mistake also. Because these things happen. But, when you look at laws and whatnot, the law supposedly being a point of morality or moral guidance in society.
I disagree with that particular premise.
Well, not that I believe that it is, or not that I'm endorsing the idea that it is, but many people endorse the idea that it is, right?
Okay. People do agree that laws in some sense represent morality. I do not believe that the majority of people would agree with that.
Yeah, well, okay. But the idea is that, like, this woman, she shot a guy, and again, looking at it from the lens of she clearly made a mistake, but laws don't necessarily allow for that, and with good reason and also bad reason, right? Because you have the whole situation of somebody's like, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, but...
I mean, it resulted in a traumatic situation.
Right, but at the same point, so you have people that legitimately make these mistakes. I mean, fuck, like every year or so, I'll go out my door and forget to lock it or something. You know, it's just shit that happens. We're all human. We make mistakes. But things like laws still punish people for having make mistakes. Even on a job, if you make a mistake, there's a lot of jobs. I was like, oh, you made this mistake, even though it's not a mistake, you're gone.
But that's not morals.
Is it though?
It isn't.
Why do you say that?
It's not morals because if I make a mistake on a job, there's...
Well, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
If I make a mistake on a job and it causes me to be fired, there's nothing morally good or bad compelling the person to fire me other than the fact that I broke a rule of some sort, and it is not profitable for a business for me to break these rules, and so they get rid of me. Because businesses do not run on morals; they run on what's profitable.
Right. So, but
that's
they don't. They're not necessarily separated because the whole idea, right? Because you look at morality also.
It's a bad thing as far as my morals would be concerned. If you fire someone for making a mistake once, then the person who's at fault here is not the person who made a mistake, but the person who didn't teach the person to to actually do the thing correctly. Okay?
Well, yeah, but see, that gets to the point of what I'm actually trying to get at, is the fact that part of being human is the fact that we do make mistakes, and, you know, even machines fuck up, but somehow it's morally acceptable to not accept a person's mistakes.
What I'm saying, though, is the decision to fire the person is not rooted in morality. It's rooted in profitability.
Well, yeah, but if you look at the idea of morality, right? And right, because some people they buy based on how they feel about a company and so forth, right?
That is based on morals.
Right. So
my core argument in this particular state is that the business is not firing someone from a moral standpoint. They're firing someone for a profitability standpoint.
Well, I'm trying to compare the two.
Sure.
Right? Morality and profitability. Right?
Typically, profitability does not follow morality.
Not that I'm saying one follows the other, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to juxtapose the others, because one could say that morality is a perspective of how human society grows, becomes better, or just even survives.
Okay.
And you can think of profitability in those same terms.
You could.
Right? And that's really the point that I'm trying to get at here by throwing this situation now and comparing these two ideas.
I mean, there are a set of morals that would lead towards people making money versus people not making money. I think a lot of non-profit organizations would try and purport that they are morally good organizations, and that what they're doing is for the benefit of people, and thus you should give them money, or that you should pay them for their stuff.
Those fucking letters now.
I find that typically most non-profit organizations are based upon a flawed morality, and what they're really doing is they're just trying to make money, but with...
Well, I mean, you do have a lot of non-profits where the president just gets paid a shitload of money. It's just
but that's my whole point I'm making, is that...
But they use the morality...
to justify what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's a morally bankrupt kind of situation, because they're reversing what morality would typically stand for. Because someone who states that it's against my morals is usually saying, this must be an evil thing, and so I'm not going to do it because it's an evil thing. Or they just say,
you know, I don't think this is something that's going to benefit me in the long run, right? I mean, that's
but
what...
they're not really... Because morality itself is a highly...
subjective and personal idea.
It is, but I don't think people understand the actual idea of morality itself when they do those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the whole thing, you know, where you have all these ideas getting tossed back and forth in society, and they're being used with the moral argument. Like you hear words like left, right, Republican, Democrat, socialism, communism, capitalism, feminism, misogyny. You know, these, and you know, even what you were talking about the other day, But the whole idea is that these words become they become these symbols of one type of morality, and rather than actually being what they are, and that winds up being a fault of society in general. That's why typically when I hear somebody say all these words, I just mentally check out and just, it's like I'm watching the monkeys masturbate at the zoo.
This is why I view the world in terms of order and chaos, yin and yang to that degree, or something like that. Because there is no really good or evil in that sense. There's a lot
It's all subjective. Yeah,
it's very subjective, and so I like to view the world simply in: is this going to create more order, or is this going to create more chaos? Okay, I love chaos. I love random events, things that just sort of are not.
Except in board games.
No. Even in board games, I like randomness. But I also like I like a good balance between the two.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Which is why I like poker a lot. Poker has a high degree of chaos in it, but at the same time, there is a very high amount of order
and that's
within
in the
game
player
itself.
interaction with bluffs and so forth.
So the game itself is very chaotic. You cannot predict the cards. What you can do is you can play off of the cards you have in your hand and off of the way people play their hands themselves. Betting alone, when just how someone bets, not the way they put the money on the table, but the amount of money that they put down on the table. Some people are following some sort of book, of course, that says, oh, you should bet this much if you have this, which may or may not be easier to read. Some people are just incredibly transparent. So they'll bet a lot with a hand that they want to just make certain the only person who stays in is someone who has a high card. So if I have pocket rockets, which is 2 aces, for those who are not aware of the terminology, I'm going to place a bet that is probably 2 to 3 times the amount of the bet itself. So if the bet is 20, I'm going to put in a bet of 60.
Let everybody know your strategy.
That's standard stuff. The reason why I do that is because I don't want someone who has a low pair, rather not even a low pair, a low set, say like a 4-5 or a 7-8. I don't want them staying in the pot, because there is always the chance, a much higher probability,
that they can draw a card that'll actually beat out.
Absolutely. So if a king-queen pops up on the flop, I can probably be reasonably sure that one person might have a king in their hand, and thus they've paired up to kings. Okay? But my aces still beat their kings. And so at that point, I will bet again, because I want to try and push them out, because I've already gotten their first set of money. And if they stay in, I got a little bit more money, and I hope that their second card does not pair up.
Right.
So ideally, aces are really good in the beginning, but I look at it, they're also the weakest hand going into any set of a pair pre-flop is really strong pre-flop, but after the flop has come out, those 3 cards could destroy your single pair, because if you don't get a third card to match up to get trips,
you don't.
You're absolutely in a terrible situation, because you have nothing. You have nothing to
Hey, I started with a pair of deuces, not a single deuce in the flop.
Exactly. So you want to push them out, but that's why I like the game, is because there's a lot of chaos as well as order in the game, because it's all about how you play and how you make plays based on the other player.
So, I mean, we kind of strayed from the topic a little bit.
Sure.
But, so the whole idea of morality, right? And you have this whole, one thing that's always the morality argument. It's like, oh, the children and so forth, and the protecting the little guy. But, again, being able to, what's better? Being able to take something away from a situation, or, never having been in a situation in the
What
first
do you mean
place?
by take away from a situation?
Well, again, I reference our show. If people just take a look at us and it's like, oh, that Charlie's an asshole, not Greg seems like an okay guy, and and they don't think about what we actually say, then they're not taking anything away from here.
That would be dismal.
Yeah, but if you don't, it's the Nemo thing, right? Nemo, Marlin just prevents Nemo from getting involved in anything that might be dangerous, and he never experiences anything until he actually just says, fuck it, I'm going to do my own thing, and then he experiences things, and he grows from it. I mean, you can't grow unless you go through strife and so forth. And this brings up the whole...
That's why I fully support beating children.
Me personally, I just hang him by a foot, for a good 3 hours. You know, you should have studied your multiplication tables, you little bastard. But, you know, like the one thing with YouTube not allowing like larger audience creators to critique smaller audience
So
creators.
let's delve a little more into that.
I mean, first off, if YouTube or any place did that, like trying to, quote, protect us, I would keep in mind of that, and I would not want to be on that platform.
So I don't like the idea that how most modern left people, I would say, think. Early super left people. In that I've heard a lot of people describe racism as only being able to be something is racist if it's coming from someone in power versus someone who doesn't, who is
critical
not in
race
power.
theory.
Yeah, critical race theory. It's a very toxic way of thinking. It doesn't really allow you to explore the.
I don't enjoy hurting anybody. I don't
Sorry, I
like
had to play
guns
that.
or bombs
Sure.
or electric chairs. But sometimes people just won't listen. And so I have to use persuasion.
So, that being said, I think that's a pretty good example of it. So, someone in power does not suddenly become racist just because they're critiquing someone who is a minority or something like that. The statement they make is what would be considered racism. And someone who's critiquing that majority power from being a minority is also racist if they say something that is racist. Okay? Racism is not based on the dynamics of power. Racism is based on how
Melanin content.
It's all based on content.
Melanin
Same
content,
with
yeah.
hate speech. Any of these topics, hate speech is not a word. It is not a statement. It is the context in which a statement or word is used.
Yeah, and I don't get, like, well, actually, I get why. Like, the whole idea of a hate crime, I mean, realistically, it's just to put people in prison for longer because,
Sure.
you know, America, the moral superiority, has 20% of the entire world's prison population.
Look, if I'm a poor guy and you're a rich guy, which would reverse our situations in this case, but if I'm a poor guy and you're a rich guy and I see that you have a Rolex and I know it's a Rolex, I might just stab you and take it just because it's a Rolex. I don't give a crap about whether you're black, white, or whatever. But someone might try and use the fact that if we were different colors to argue that it was a crime out of hatred or something like that.
Yeah, but you know what the truth is, Greg?
What?
We like to murder others. That's what us humans do. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, black, Asian, or Jew.
Thank you for that.
YouTube just wants to kill you. Facebook and Twitter, too. They really like their kiddie porn, but they just don't like you. Hooray for conclusory statements, by the way.
Hooray!
You heard about that? The lawsuits against Twitter?
I have not.
Oh, man.
I mean, I know that Crowder has an ongoing lawsuit with Facebook right now.
No, there's a lawsuit, some kid against Twitter because apparently there was pictures of him while he was naked while he was underage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he, what's it called, wanted Twitter to take him down. It was like, oh, we looked at the content and saw nothing wrong with it, blah, blah, blah. That's the allegation.
Did I tell you about the two gay guys that are having sex on YouTube? But there's a sheet between them. So, obviously, that's not bad content.
But speaking of sex, I mean, you know, this is, you know, we got to wrap up because we're getting close on time. The morality argument, one thing you hear a lot is like the whole, which somehow is been made into a morality argument, which is, oh, big women are beautiful and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other thing.
How's that morality?
Well, I mean, you know, it's oh, there's something wrong with you if you don't like big women. It's the same thing, like...
Well, that's the same statement people are making with trans.
Right, I was going to bring that up also, right?
None of this makes any sense at all. It's complete bullshit.
Remember a time when women would say, hey, my eyes are up here. Now it's, hey, my ass is over here, you know?
So
and that's supposed to be the morally superior, is... Hey, look at my ass.
Like I say, I think at in the 80s and the 90s, we were at a point where society may have been moving forward in some way or fashion. Not necessarily the best way, but we were moving forward. We were getting better.
In theory.
In theory. And then we had, maybe, I could be completely wrong, perhaps the Y2k virus was really a biovirus that infected humans. And we've been on a downwards trend since the year 2000, even though we solved the crisis of computers.
Yeah.
I love the episode that Dilbert had about that.
I didn't see that.
Oh, they had an entire episode about the Y2K, and Wally, who was otherwise useless, had to solve it.
I remember all that. All right, well, that is pretty much all the time we have for today, and just to keep in time constraints. And, Greg, we fixed the audio level, so it's not so much torture on people anymore. But I still want to torture people. So I'm thinking about doing the outro a little differently. What do you think, Greg? Should I torture people?
Us more dislikes.
Ramp
it up, my friend.
Well, in that case. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good, but once you get crossed, you will don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend, all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth, and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you are a zero.
Little much there.
You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID Murder Fest. I hate you all.
Wonderful.
That's not what you're supposed to say. Fuck you, everybody.